This to my computer. Hey, I'm just gonna say hello. I am having to connect with this amazing man that I just met yesterday, and our conversation got to be so juicy. I thought I'd hit the record button because this is such an
Awesome.
important global conversation. I talk a lot in terms of the divine feminine. It should never, ever, ever be at the expense of the divine masculine. That's also bastardized. So please, Oliver, is it Marcel? Is that how you pronounce your name?
Myself. Yep.
And I mean, give us a little intro and catch us up with the
Absolutely.
conversation. I can't wait to dive into where we were.
Yeah, absolutely. So Oliver Marcelle, author, speaker, coach, living in the marriage and family and relationship enrichment space, but not just relationships romantically, but also relationships in the workplace, as well as men's empowerment. Have a tremendous heart for men, especially based on what I've gone through in life. And it comes out in a book that I wrote called Overcoming the Man Laws for the man who wants to be his best despite what he was taught. And so
And
I
I just
live in
want to
that space.
underscore that title is just
Yeah.
awesome. The man laws. And it's like, how many of the laws are we buying into that we don't even know where they came into, where they,
Listen,
who made this law up? And so when you talk in terms of the man laws, are you helping them to relearn, like give those old laws as
helping them to relearn. Because here's the thing: everybody can think of a man law. Like if I ask somebody to think of a man law, they could rattle off a bunch of stuff that either they've learned either directly
heck?
from their fathers and brothers and grandfathers and uncles, or indirectly by just watching them. Right? All of these things that we've ingested that we believe are make up the fabric of a man. And here's the thing: they're not all bad.
Mm-hmm.
My experience is that there are some things that I held on to that it wasn't until I got into a marriage that I realized some of these things, some of these laws are detrimental to my success as a husband and father. So I had to unlearn some things and relearn some things. And so that's what the book kind of goes through some areas that I grappled with. And I give you my journey of self-discovery, which is an ongoing journey, by the way.
Yeah.
I have not arrived. I'm
And we
still on the
won't.
highway.
We won't.
Right,
there is
right.
there is no
I'm
perfect
still on the
human, and
highway.
we will not be the first, right? But I love how
Exactly.
you said, because I was saying, that oftentimes men in these days seem like they're backed into a corner, and they're back so far that they don't even recognize that they're in the corner. So
Yep.
tell me about
And
what you said
and
from
that's where
there.
yeah, and that's where I was. I didn't even realize that some of these things were even necessary. Some of the lessons that I've learned over the years, I didn't even realize that they were instrumental to me, because I'd always associated them with some other scenario, not me. Because often as men, we aren't we aren't given the whole picture. We aren't told that, hey, there's going to be an emotional component to how you live life. There's going to be a spiritual component to the trajectory of your life. There's going to be a mindfulness component. There's going to be all these different components that actually make up the core and soul of who you are.
Hmm.
A lot of us aren't given that. We're given, hey, man up, see a task, conquer a task, be victorious over a task, go to the next task. And so we spend our lives with this head down, bang through walls mentality. And then when it doesn't happen, the only emotion that is often acceptable is anger.
Yeah.
Right? As a man, I can't be vulnerable. As a man, I can't show you emotion. As a man, I can't break down and admit to you that I need some level of guidance or direction. That's not manly. That's not a
Yes.
man law, right?
And it's so cruel, because women want the men that, oh, I want someone who's in touch with their emotions, but as soon as they emote, then we see them as weak.
As
And it's
weak.
like that's a connection that we inherited that doesn't make freaking sense.
It doesn't. And to speak to what you're talking about, to putting yourself, backing yourself into a corner, what happens now is that you, for some reason, an emotion kind of squeaks out of you. It gets smashed down.
Right.
So now what do? I try to get harder. And then the harder I get, the more disconnected I get.
Mm-hmm.
The more disconnected I get, the more I don't have the ability now to show emotion,
Yeah.
which makes me get even harder. So in my case, I backed my own self into the corner, and then I built a wall around me because I felt like that was what I was supposed to do. The wall protected me. Yeah, it did.
Yeah, good job.
But it also didn't let you in.
Yeah.
And it didn't let me out.
Just like you said, that we've got the protection up, and it's not them out there anymore backing you in the corner. Right. We are the ones who've now taken the whip, and we're whipping ourselves back into the corner.
Yep.
And
exactly. And that's right. And then that protection ultimately becomes a prison.
Yeah.
And that's where I found myself.
Powerful.
In a prison that I built.
Yeah. And the only one strong enough to let down those walls.
Yep.
Might be the guy
in the mirror. I had a epiphany about 18 months into my marriage. And it didn't change things for me, but it changed my focus. So often what I tell people is that, listen, you're at the onset, you're not looking for this miraculous type of, change in your life. It may not happen that way. What you need to do is change your direction. Because if I'm driving west and I continue to drive west for 5 hours, but I'm really supposed to be going east, if I have an epiphany, I'm like, you know what? I've been driving west and I should be going east. As soon as I turn around to go east, I'm not at my destination. But I am now going the right direction.
Yeah.
So here was my turnaround moment. My turnaround moment was 18 months into our marriage. I'm all over the place. I don't even want to get into that. I'm all over the place. Take it for whatever you think it is. You're probably right. I come in at 4 a.m. one morning. At this time, my girls are small. And I come in at 4 a.m. one morning. And oddly enough, even at the height of my craziness, I would still journal. So I'd come in at 4 a.m. in the morning. There was a book that I read, and I have a question you ask at the end of the little devotional or whatever it is, and then you can jot down. So I'm going through that 4 a.m. and it just the thought just pops into my head. If your daughters grow up and they bring you home, you're going to be bitter about that. And now I had to admit, yeah, I'm going to be pissed off about that. So the next question now is, okay, if that's how you're going to feel, what are you going to do about it? That was my turnaround moment. Now, obviously, there were some years of unlearning and relearning that happened after that. But that was the pivotal moment where I was like, yeah, I got to do something different. I got to do something different. And so if I had to sum up all that has happened since then, I could sum it up in three ways. One, I had to change my mindset. And for me, that was huge because I was, as men, it is very easy for us to change our behavior. So if you tell me, hey, listen, stop hitting this way and hit it that way, and you'll get your result, I can do that. That's easy for me to make that switch. Mm-hmm. The problem is that behavioral change without mindset change is not sustainable long term.
Right.
So I'm trying to be a good husband, trying to be a good father. I'm making all these quick behavioral changes, but my mindset is still exactly the same. So at some point I revert right back to it. So I had to change my mindset. That was part of the process, ongoing process to this day. The second part of that was shadowing my future. And what I mean by that is I had to get around some folk who were actually traveling in the direction that I wanted to travel in and had successfully gone through several checkpoints and several milestones of life. And they were able to show me, hey, listen, I went through that checkpoint that you're at right now. Here's how you get through it. And then challenge me to actually, okay, now you drive. Get through the checkpoint. And I'm going to give you some feedback about how you did it. So you got to get in a place where you can shadow your future and you can get around some folk who are able to encourage you, who are able to give you four things. And I talk about it in my book: observation, training, execution, and feedback. I believe that every man should go through that and should take every other man through that once they've gone through it. So those were so changing my mindset, shadowing my future, and then submitting to the adjustments. Because the big thing with men is that you're going to change me. What you're trying to do is change me, and I'm not going to let you do that.
Right, right.
But it's not about what happens in your core. It's about what adjustments do you make so that you reach your goals. The adjustments are not a threat to your authenticity.
Right.
Your authenticity remains intact. Your adjustments are the things that help you to continue down your journey with some level of success. And the example that I always use is this. I'm a basketball guy. So if you tell a point guard, if you look at a point guard's game and you give them some feedback and you're like, listen, against left-handed opponents, I want you to go right instead of left. Because every time you go left, you get hung up by the defense. Am I now saying that the guy is no longer a point guard? No. He's still a point guard. He's just making an adjustment that now puts him in a better position to win. So I had to submit to the adjustments, and that was tough for me because I'm like, I like who I am, and you're trying to change who I am. No, I'm not trying to change who you are.
So give us some of the examples of adjustments.
Some examples of adjustments. So I had to learn how to be compassionate. And so
that
in learning
class isn't taught in high school.
No. It's not. And then depending on your family of origin, like my parents are from the Caribbean. So Caribbean culture, the man is the man. What he says is what happens. There is no questions. It is his way or it is the highway. That's the culture I grew up in, right? And so compassion is not necessarily modeled in that scenario, right? And so I had to learn now as it relates to compassion, I had to learn now how to unselfishly meet the needs of, in this case, my wife, because a lot of these things I didn't realize were issues for me until I got married. Mm-hmm. I had to now find a way to put her, as it relates to altruism, put her well-being ahead of my own, which was very tough to do because I was a very selfish person. I was not compassionate. I was the very opposite of that. And so there were some things that slowly but surely I had to do, because you can't jump into the deep end of the pool if you don't know how to swim, right? So I had to wade into this thing by doing little things like asking her, is she okay? Or asking her, or fixing her plate, or seeing her about to do something and saying, hey, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll do the dishes, or all of these things that were very much not who I was. And so now I'm like, man, this is changing me into some soft, housewife looking husband and da 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 da. No, it's not. It's not. And so what I tell people all the time is, what I want you to think about is, I want you to evaluate the end game. Mm-hmm. And what I had to start asking myself was, because I would get hung up in the weeds of this. I had to start asking myself, what is it that I'm looking for? What's the end game? What is my goal? Okay, my goal is that I don't want my wife to be stressed out. The goal is that I don't want me to be stressed out because she's stressed out, which now means we're going to be fussing and fighting. I want to eliminate that. And I went through all of these things that I wanted to see. Then the question became, okay, what's the strategy to get that? That changed the game for me once I started looking at it like that. Because first I was looking at it, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. And it's just this list of chores.
Yeah.
Now I played to the strengths of how I think as a man. I'm like, what's the end game? Oh, this is the end game? Okay, let's crash. I need to do this in order to get that. It's on. Let's do it.
I love it.
And that's what I've been doing ever since. Not at my destination, but much further along than 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And I
Yep.
love, because I asked you what the man laws are, and I love the 8 areas that you came up with. So
Yeah.
leadership, mental stamina, relationship, respect, trust, faith, altruism, and authenticity.
Yep. Those were 8 of the areas that I probably grappled with the most.
Yeah.
As it
Powerful
relates
stuff.
to who I am as a man and who I should be as a person, as a human being.
Yeah. And just like you said, how much of this is actually these strange beliefs and patterns that we've picked up from God knows where, and
Yep.
we're implementing without questioning, does this really make sense for, I like how you say that, the end game, is this going to get us there?
Yep.
Um,
And then the awful thing, because I'm guilty of this too, the awful thing is that we pass it on.
yeah.
So I have 3 children. The youngest is 19 and the youngest is a male child. So I was doing the same thing. Come on, man up. Come on, don't do that. Do this. And then realizing as he got into his teen years, I was like, okay, that's not the way we're going to get some level of success here. It's just not. And then allowing him to see me, this is a tough thing for many people, not just guys, but allowing him to see the journey, giving him a front row seat to his father's journey.
Yeah.
Right? Bro, I'm not perfect. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, I'm walking out a lot of this the same way you are. The difference is, and this is the analogy I would always give. I'd be like, listen, we're both on the major exchange around us is 695, I-695. So I'm like, listen, we're both on 695. I'm just 50 miles down the road ahead of you. That's the only difference. So what I'm going to be able to do is tell you, listen, when you get to mile marker 10, there's a pothole in the right lane.
Yeah.
So make a shift so you avoid that, because I tore my car up. And I had to get over.
You said,
I had to get over, fix it, spend a whole bunch of money, and then get back on the highway. So to save you that, just remember, when you get to mile marker 10, go that way. That's it. And I think it's our duty to do that for somebody else in life.
Yeah. Like your shirt says, 2020 before the hindsight. Like
before the hindsight. Yeah.
If we could find
some level of clarity. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to think of geese flying in formation. If you can find the goose ahead of you, like fly with that.
Yeah.
Awareness. So what kind of advice would you have for women? Like you said, oftentimes the men are shut down into the corner with the one emotion of anger. So how can we show up to meet that, to allow that wall, the barriers to come down, so now we can at least have authentic conversation about what's really going on?
That's a great question. And when we talk to women, we often tell them, we often talk about creating an environment, right? The thing that we need probably the most is to know that there's safety, that there's a haven for us. Because often in certain scenarios, we have to show up a certain way. Mm-hmm. So you have to show up in business a certain way. You have to show up in the corporate space a certain way. You have to show up in the world a certain way. There has to be a moment and a space that's created for you to now be like, you know what? I'm comfortable here. And I'm needed here. And I'm being seen here. And I'm being acknowledged here. And I'm validated here. And what I'm saying is being received, whether it be venting or whether it be victorious. Mm-hmm. It's all welcomed. And so, to answer your question, what the women in our lives can do is create that environment. Because often you get, I heard somebody say it this way: you don't want to be on the battlefield all day and then come home to a war.
Yeah.
Right. And so creating that, and I'm not saying being a pushover. That is not what I'm saying. Hear me. I'm not saying anything goes and you just got to accept whatever. No. Creating an environment is about just allowing the person to be very cognizant of the fact that this is a safe place. I want to hear from you, even if you don't say anything. Know that when you decide to, I'm here to receive that. You're not going to get I'm not going to browbeat you. I'm not going to badger you. I'm not going to belittle you. I'm not going to shoot down your ideas. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to listen with some level of activity, meaning there's going to be some active listening involved. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to acknowledge, I'm going to validate, and I'm going to make sure you're seen. Now, if we have to have some type of intellectual intimacy kind of conversation around what you said, then that's fine. But that's not where we're going to start. We're going to start with safety, validation, and acknowledgement.
Nice. Which is exactly what we're looking for at the same time.
Exactly.
So this is the playing field we get to come to and meet together to create this space. And, you know, the way women emote might be different, but the core human need remains to be that valued and seen and acknowledged.
That's right.
So if anger is flaring up, how might we, again, the safety is there. Is there a way to help you open up the safety? Like now we're opening up the dialogue to create a space of safety. Is there, I guess we should read your book is probably what we should do.
Hey, listen, I encourage you definitely read the book. I'll say this as it relates to anger. Anger is a result of something else.
Yeah.
It's secondary.
It's like a symptom.
Yeah. So there's something else behind that. The mistake that we make as human beings is that we react to the emotion. Mm-hmm. So somebody gets angry with me, I react to their anger.
Right.
I don't take the time to really kind of figure out where the anger is coming from and address that.
And oftentimes anger would be the expression, an emotion of something that's not expressed. So you haven't provided the playing field. So to kind of put a cork in it so that they can share the full story of what and, you know, it kind of reminds me of the medical world of, you know, we're diagnosing from the surface level, but the actual cause could be something completely different.
That's right. And so we have to spend some time now. Some of it boils down to patience.
Yeah. I was thinking humility, and like, I love your attitude about this is a journey. This is an unfolding, and that's the dance of the relationship then, because neither by long shot would be perfect into the relationship. So allowing that dance to unfold, because we each have our emotions that are, you know, are the symptom levels. And so to unpeel and get to that space, oftentimes it's the pee under the mattress. It's probably based on a false belief at its very inception, but given the chance, I love Brene Brown, you know, the shame, the pain, the hurt, you know, all it needs is to be brought up and brought to the light and seen and shared and witnessed for one another. And then it just dissolves away. And now what remains is a connection. It's like, thank you, Oliver, for seeing me through that. You know, I thought I dealt with that, and here it is again. And thank you. I needed that. So, wow.
And you said it. That's awesome. And here's the thing that, especially when we're working with couples, the thing that we often tell them is that what you just described does not happen overnight.
Yeah. Yep.
We're very impatient as human beings. So if I attempt what you just described today and it doesn't work, I'm throwing the whole thing away. That's not how this works. Nothing in life works that way. So why would we expect our personal and professional relationships to work that way, right? It is a process And it's a process of trial, execution, and evaluation. Mm-hmm. And then in that evaluation piece, either you're going to be like, man, this worked phenomenal, we need to keep doing that. Or here's what really the end game is that we're looking for. What tweaks do we need to make?
Do you and your wife use that kind of languaging when you're doing stuff? If something comes up, do you say, let's look back to how we executed on that?
Well, we do now. We do now. But now in the beginning, no. but yeah, now.
Yeah, I want to remind you, what'd you say, like 21 years?
21. We've been in it 21 years, right? So there has been a lot of trial and error before we got the trial, execution, and evaluation. But yeah, and that's the thing, man. You grow into that. And your language may be different, but really essentially what you're doing is that you are again, we're talking about switching focus, right? A lot of this is about switching focus. Mm-hmm. It is not about you. If we're talking in a romantic relationship, it is not you and against your mate. It is always you and your mate against the scenario. So now if you're like, okay, we're on a team, and I don't know anybody, again, I'm going to use basketball. I use it a lot. I don't know anybody on a basketball team who looks at their teammate and is like, I want to win the game, but I want you to lose it. That's impossible. We're either going to all lose this game or we're going to all win this game. And so for me, a turning point was when I realized, wait a minute, that's my teammate. It's not my opponent. I'm not trying to win against her. We're trying to win. So, okay, now that changes the focus. Now I go in like, okay, what do you need me to do? She comes in with the same focus. Okay, what do you need me to do? All right, let's go execute. And then if we happen to take a loss, because listen, it's life. Life is not all bed of roses. They're going to be wins and losses. If we happen to take a loss, we've now matured enough to be like, okay, we lost that as a team. Where did we go wrong? Just as a basketball team, the next day would look at tape and be like, oh man, I should have set a pick for you right there. And I didn't. My bad.
Yeah. And I love that because then that takes out of the equation our own personal insecurities or the temptation to want to blame the other, beat them up. It's like, well, you didn't, do this, what I needed.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's a game changer. I'm telling you, it is a game changer. It takes some effort. It obviously takes a change in your mindset. It definitely takes some work to really kind of readjust and refocus. But once you're there, it feels great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So like I said when we first met, so I talk in terms of the divine feminine. Tell me a little bit about what this divine masculine would look like and what you guys have been experiencing, kind of like, as I say, the bastardization of the man out there. How are you guys feeling through all this?
Man, I think the discovery that's being made slowly but surely is that we are complete human beings. As it relates to divine masculinity, there are just as many parts to us as there are to you. Now, we may compartmentalize them different. We may categorize them differently. We process them differently, but at the end of the day, they are in existence. And what I'm starting to see a lot of groups do, which is it's new, but I'm loving that I'm seeing it happen, is I'm starting to see a lot of groups really encouraging men to embrace that. And then teaching them that to embrace that is not a weakness. It actually takes more strength. The same thing that we say about women all the time, how they're so strong and they have the ability to do this and they have the ability to handle this and they can be a mother and they can be a career woman and they have all of these strengths. It's okay. It takes just as much strength or maybe even more.
That's what I was thinking.
to live out your life holistically.
Yeah.
than it does to be one dimensional.
Yeah. And it's, to
And
me, I
more,
think of the give and receive when you paint the picture, and that's like that 80s and 90s woman, the Wonder Woman doing it all. It's like, that's against our nature, like to give and to receive. There's a cadence, there's a flow to life that we're missing.
yeah.
And when we
And
can allow that for one another too, we can't expect you guys to always be on.
Right. And that's just it's what we've been handed, both as men and women, right? If you think about it, I'm 50, so that'll give you kind of the generation that I'm in and my parents' generation. So if I look back at my parents' generation, my parents are in their 80s. There were very clearly defined roles. And those roles governed who you were as a man and who you were as a woman. The thing is, we've obviously evolved from that time, mm-hmm. but we have evolved in practice, but we haven't evolved in practicality.
Yeah, I love that.
We still kind of hold on to those roles, and we beat our heads up against the wall when that ideology doesn't seem to align with our current practice.
And like you said, it's just an outdated thing, and we didn't even recognize that we bought into the law. So we're feeling like we're failing, but we're failing against a thing that never really, if we sat down to think about it, doesn't make sense into our world. So the invitation becomes you get to create the relationship based on the communication, starting with the safe space you create, and find the laws that work for you in that individual relationship to get what you each want, your beautiful individual desires that are here to be fully expressed. It's like, that's all. I hear Tony Robbins, he talks, the man wants to, his highest desire is to see his woman happy. And for us to be fulfilled and make you guys happy, it's like, what a beautiful example of give and take, and to find that safe space to dance together for that mutual win. I love the metaphors you've created for us.
Yeah, that's it. That's the goal. That's the goal. The goal is understanding. The goal is teamwork. And the goal is crafting strategy that is significant and that very much aligns with your specific goals. That may not look like, your blueprint may not look like mine. Just like every house on this block doesn't look the same. Right? But the level of functionality meets the needs of the family that lives there. And that's the same thing we're looking for in life, man. We are looking at how do we tap into what has divinely been already innately put in us and use that in a way that we can now be effective in our relationships, whether personal or professional, because we would now be showing up. If we do that and tap into that, we would now be showing up as the very best version of ourselves. And now you get to see, if you see the very best version of me, you now get to make a decision that's clear and that is very much devoid of anything false or anything fake. You can feel my energy and you can decide whether it aligns with yours. And then we can move together in some level of harmony. It cuts out all of this foolishness that we feel like is necessary.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. What an invitation for both sides, men to, and I guess that's important, the advice as you look to selecting your mate or showing up for the one you have is opening up the conversation to be here.
Yeah. Oh, I just create the environment.
Yeah. Awesome.
The environment is conducive to everything, right? When we go to a restaurant, we look at ambiance. You say, oh man, this is such a romantic space, because you've assessed that by the environment that's been created. Mm-hmm. right? Or this is dangerous. Like you go in a place like, no, I'm good. I think I'm good. I don't want to be here. It doesn't feel right, right? It's the same thing in all of our relationships, whether personal or professional. You know, automatically, you can feel the energy of the environment, and that environment is conducive to everything that happens next, as it relates to your level of comfort, as it relates to how you open up, as it relates to all of that. So
I love this. Okay, so where can people find your book?
People can find the book either on Amazon, Overcoming Demand Laws, or you can get it directly from me if you go to my website, which is Denali, DEN, as in Nancy, OLI.org/shop. You could get it there as well. You get it directly from me, I'll sign it. You know, so those are the two options right now.
I love it. I would like to, like how they used to have Dear Abby, the advice column. I think you got to open up a little talk for Dear Oliver, so maybe some of us lady folks can get our crazy questions answered.
That's not a bad idea. I may look into that.
Well, I'll put this on my Facebook and see if anyone wants to be your beta test. We'll be the crash test dummies for you.
Hey, that'll work. I love it.
Awesome.
I love it.
Well, thank you. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you. This has been amazing. And I'll post this on Facebook, and I'll put your link below so people can figure out how to spell Denali.
Absolutely.
Wait, where do I stop the recording?